What is up, party people? So, this is what it is. I was over at the wonderful place of 24/7 last night, after the stream, and so I got kicked. Apparently, Bong does not like being called mean, oddly enough. But yeah, so until I get back in there, uh, I'm going to go on a Bong's an asshole raid and play the rest of those uploads. But before I do that, and let me get into why I'm streaming this topic right now. Um, I, I was sitting there listening, and they started talking about this wonderful topic that we've been talking about, refraction, resolution, the whole nine. Specifically, the Rayleigh criterion. Now, understand this. The video that someone shared, the upload, was from a guy. Let me find out what his name was. It was like Mitchell or something like that. But it actually had just been uploaded from yesterday. Let me go ahead and find out who this is, because there is a very huge issue with how these things are presented, and I think it has a lot to do with why the average flat earther who doesn't know very much, is learning about how things work, why they're able to depict these things unrealistically. Let me find this. Probably not going to play it, but I'm going to show you clips and then talk about it. Or here it is. His name is Mitchell from Australia. So let me see. I got my notes. So one of the biggest things that, it's right off the bat is the problem. Is the fact that there's no understanding of what these things are and what they accomplish. Mainly because the flat earthers that are spreading this like it is, like they know everything and they know the facts, are incorrect. For instance, last night, Flat Earth Data, who is in the chat, came on and did a 10-minute presentation. Apparently, he wanted a 10-minute unquestioned presentation, because immediately after he was given 10 minutes of quiet time for himself to express his view, he immediately became an asshole, so I kicked him. But I did realize something, because I was taking my notes. And if you go back and look at last night's stream, this is one thing you're going to not hear. You don't hear Flat Earth Data make a claim. You don't hear Flat Earth Data give an observation. You won't hear Flat Earth Data show or tell us an explanation for what he was even presenting. As far as we know, he knows how to make circles at 3 miles and 8 miles, 17 miles. I don't remember. I think it was like 20. Didn't matter. But the reality of it is that he just didn't have a good presentation, and I think he realized it at the end. Especially because the book you were reading, Data, was from 1920s. Technology has gotten a little the better of us, so we're able to provide more data now. So there you go. But again, let me preface this. Optics, atmospheric optics to be exact, aka ether blanket. Shout out to Ali B. It's explainable on the globe, and here's why. So I'm going to pull up some images, which is so much easier when no one's on the panel. So let me go ahead and show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So the idea that the obstruction that we're seeing, specifically when boats begin to obstruct from the bottom up as they crest over the horizon, as they pass the horizon. Again, atmospheric optics does not play a part in the obstruction that we see. Now, because I said this, I want you to understand something. Because I understand it now. Let me show you. When you're looking at say, we'll go to images. We're going to go to perspective. Play this one. So when we show this, where is it? Hang on, I'm trying to get my images show. There it is. So when we see this, I mean, we basically know right off the bat, this is not what the hallway is doing. Our eyes deceive us. Our eyes take on an illusion, and our brain renders it how we perceive it, right? So we know that this hallway isn't diving down and shoots up at the very ends. We know that in the middle of this hallway is the lowest point. But our perception makes us think it does. It appears to, right? Okay. Well, the same way, if you go out to the beach and you stand there and the water would appear to rise, well, that can easily be shown not true. Easily show that it's an appearance, not a reality, by getting, say, a peep sight, a sight leveler. You look out towards the horizon, you level out your sight, and the one thing you'll notice every single time you do is that your level, where your eye is, will never be equal to or under the horizon. It just doesn't work that way. It's an apparent observation. But for some reason, you're taking this apparent observation, kicking it, rolling it around, and then making up ideas for things. That doesn't work. And just so you guys know, the people that are bringing this stuff out there are people who don't really know much, but they're hearing the arguments, and then they're going out there and they're making those arguments, only to fail. And it's not their fault. They're trying. But how do you make it seem as if you know it all? Okay, so Dave in the chat says, Sean, you are either mind controlled or being dishonest. You have atmospheric obstruction in less than's mic when curve isn't in play. I don't even know what that meant. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Come up with something that actually is a fact for how I'm dishonest, and I will answer to it. But until then, it just sounds like you're whining about something. I'm not really sure what I would be mind controlled for, or it doesn't even make sense. You're making less sense than Fire's data is right now. So, like I said, this isn't actually how it is. So let's move on. We're gonna go ahead and grab some other images that I wanted to show you guys, because again, it's, to me, it's not. Okay, sir. You think the junction of your eyes? What do we say? You think the junction of your eyes at 3 miles is Earth curvature? That doesn't even make sense. Why do you call it a junction? That's weird. So weird. Anyway, let me go ahead and grab that other image for you guys, so you guys can get a better understanding of it. Shanji, in less than one mic minute, you can have atmospheric conditions blocking a target. Is this more clear? Okay, you're right, 100%. Now, the observation of boats disappearing from the bottom up due to curvature is it's very normal. It's what we constantly observe. Now, you're right. Atmosphere may play a factor in these conditions, in our observations, and we may not be able to see the boat at that point. But if we're able to see the horizon and we're able to see that boat, every single time it will disappear. It will disappear from the bottom up. Now, check this out. If it was atmosphere that did the obstructing, we would have so many different observations of boats disappearing from the bottom up. It wouldn't be the same one. Because again, as long as the atmosphere is clear enough that you can see the horizon and you can see the boat, we know it's not atmospheric conditions obstructing. Why? Because if it was atmosphere, how is it that it's obstructing the bottom of the boat, but not anything past that? You still see boat in front of that. Again, I can explain more through it. If it were the case that it wasn't curvature, then what you're saying is that at a distance, things start losing from the bottom up. Okay? Well, then at that point, because it's not curvature, because it's not land, or, the curvature of Earth that's doing it, guys, then you're telling me that an airplane or a rocket or a hot air balloon in the distance should disappear from the bottom up as well because of distance. Now, here's the important part. When we're talking distance and how the eyes work, that picture back, sorry about that, my fault. When we're talking about, let me get that picture so I rant this, it makes more sense. All right, let's see. Okay, perfect. When we are talking these optics, we're talking distance, we're talking, again, about resolution. So when flat Earth, you're talking about the Rayleigh criterion, you're not talking about obstruction. You're not talking about bottom up at all. Not even a little bit. Not even a small bit. It's very disingenuous when you do that. So here's the thing. When you go and say something like, the reason boats disappear bottom up is the Rayleigh criteria. It's the limits of our eyes. Again, not true, because if the back of the boat that is disappearing from the bottom up was the limit of our eyes, we would not see anything past that. We would not see boat past that point right there in step 1. 2, the Rayleigh criteria is an example or an explanation for the resolution in something in the distance. For instance, if two objects are clear enough, you are able to see that there are two objects, then you have a good resolution, well resolved, right? As they start merging, and I have a diagram I'll show you guys in a second. As they start merging, that is when you start having these effects that happen differently, where you would have just resolved. It's not very good. You can kind of depict that there's a couple, there's two objects, but it's now becoming out of, you can't tell. Then you got the next one that's not resolved. That is the point where the Rayleigh criteria takes into play, and your resolution cannot make out detail to what is seen in the distance. Again, I want you to notice something. This is very important, and I don't think anyone can say I'm wrong on this. So please, where in this explanation of the Rayleigh criteria, the limits of our eyes, do you see any obstruction bottom up? Because this is exactly what the Rayleigh criteria is explaining, and it's exactly what it's trying to explain as resolution, not obstruction. It has nothing to do with obstruction at all. All right? Don't worry, guys, because there's more. I'm going to go and get to these clips real quick. It's not even a clip. I'm just going to not even screenshot it, but just go to it, because holy crap. So, this is where I see Flat Earth depicting it wrong, or these content creators depicting it wrong. And hopefully you see it right away. Now, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to actually let this one kind of linger a little bit. And I want to know, out of everyone that's here, how many people, I want to see who can instantly tell me what's wrong with what you're about to see. Please tell me. What is wrong with this image? Anybody? Anybody, somebody. Because it's a big deal. It matters. Big time. What's missing here? Or what's wrong, incorrect here, actually. All right. Glim says, I can't join, but what do you think happens to the floor with Rayleigh criterion? My view is it would be also compress at the same distance your eyes height would in the distance. Okay, here's a problem with that. What you're saying is what we would see for a rocket or an airplane, where where this object would basically get smaller as it got further. So it got to a point in the sky and blip, gone. Again, we're not talking about that. We're talking about obstruction. Where does obstruction come in on Rayleigh's criteria? Because if there's obstruction, you no longer see. You no longer can be able to resolve those two objects. Again, obstruction has nothing to do with Rayleigh criteria. Nothing. Has anybody seen the issue in this yet? Kind of worries me if you guys don't instantly see what the problem here. Yeah, I don't even have to play it, and I instantly saw exactly what the issue is. So everyone gets it. What Mitchell the Australian was doing was the wonderful table in a quarter. You know, that wonderful obstruction thing they do. But this one's bad. This one is insanely, it's just insanely dishonest. And I want to go through these before I show it, but I'm going to tell you right now, anyone who believes what you guys are going to see or is able to not instantly say, I call bullshit. I don't know what's wrong with you. That's almost a gimme on that one. Yes, thank you. It took Barney to fucking do it. Thank you, Barney. Here is the biggest issue with this goddamn upload that I'm showing you guys. Yeah, Mitchell. Do you see where the Rayleigh criteria graphs are? Right here? See that shit? That's bullshit. First of all, Rayleigh's criteria, again, is the explanation of two objects that merge due to your resolution. He's got it as if they depict elevation. All right, yeah, I'm gonna do that right now. I'm only gonna be sending hand links out right now. Let me go ahead and go to the bunker. Pretty sure everyone that could be involved is there. Go. All right, give me a second, Tody. I'll get you guys in there. And let me see. Okay, so I'm just reading the chat, guys. Sorry about that. So Gleam says this is obstruction in 2 times 6 feet people, or in 2 times 6 foot people walking apart. Okay, 2 6-foot people walking apart. They would lose each other around 3. This is same distance from where the floor C would be. Same to see if no. Okay, so again, if this would take 3 people, and for your scenario, Gleam, those 2 people, it has nothing. The Rayleigh's criteria doesn't matter to them. It's the reference. It's me as the reference point. I mean, I'm looking at it, and if those 2 people blend in to become one, then I cannot resolve them. Therefore, Rayleigh's criteria starts into play. But yours is that's not a example of the Rayleigh of the Rayleigh criteria. Damn. Then Flat Data says, dude, take half your camera lens, block 50% of it, set it up level, and walk in front of it. Let's see you own video. What are you talking about? First of all, Flat Data, you got to make some sense, please. Yeah, I'm about to put links in the bunker. let me get you in here, Tody. Anybody else, make sure you tag me. Let me know that you want in, and I will send you a link. And then I'll send the link out to a few people that I know most likely will come in. So there you go, Tody. You got one in your mailbox right now. Let me make sure it's sent. Did not. Let me try that. Okay, hang on 1 second. I gotta get the link from here. Okay, so like I was saying, again, don't anyone using the Rayleigh criterion as no curvature proof, it's very disingenuous. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense because, for one, also in my research of this topic, no one on the Globe side, no science, no links, no source. There's not one of your sources, Flat Earth, that will say that the Rayleigh criteria causes obstruction. It doesn't cause obstruction. It has nothing to do with it. Again, obstruction is elevation up and down. Well, Rayleigh criteria is horizontal. It's the resolution between objects that are in the distance. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put the link in the bunker, guys. So check it there. Makes my life so much easier, rather than sending everyone a link. Let's see, this is not acting right. All right, there we go. That's why, because I wasn't in the right place. All right, yep, there you go. Links in the bunker, guys. Everyone I saw knows the bunker, so should be in here pretty soon. Now, again, like I said, the Rayleigh criterion doesn't work that way. It's not set up that way. It's very disingenuous that they're doing it. What's up, Jose? How you doing, sir? All right, let me make sure they can hear you. There you go.
Check 1, 2.
Yep.
Excellent. Let me just read one comment really quick because that's kind of what I came for. Before I personally block Dave Rakia on this chat because I don't want to hear read his garbage in here. He say, Sean, JG Gonzalez, let's get drunk and high and agree. Can't even speak. Dave Rakia, don't be such a fucking asshole. I don't get drunk and I don't get high, so shut the fuck up. I'm done.
That's funny. Well, I like to smoke, so. Yeah, Tody, you're in the bunker. Yeah, I just was looking at it, I think. Yeah, I'm looking at you right now, Tody. I tried to send the link in the DM, but I don't know, for some reason it's not letting me. Let me see if I can get there manually. There you go. Okay, got the link there. I don't know why it wouldn't let me just normally send it to you. That was weird. But yeah, again, this whole idea that obstruction, you're using all these different ideas, whether it be angular size, angular resolution, diffraction grading, all these things.
Yeah, Chonji, this 3-layer picture with the quarter, I'm looking at it and I feel like, what do we have as a reference? If it's just pictures, it can be just dismissed because I can do anything with pictures that I want. I can put the camera below the table. I can put my quarter right in the edge and make the half disappear and just crop it so the table look in the middle. It's so easy to manipulate. And then the last picture, well, the quarter is just not there. I'll just take a picture of the table,
Yeah.
It's so bad, as no reference on it.
Jose, wait until you see this. Wait until you see this. Oh.
Is this the one that when he's zoomed out, he moved the quarterback, it appeared to disappear from the bottom up? When he zoom in, you can see the camera shaking, like moving a little bit.
It kind of does.
So as he zoom in, you can see like the camera
lifts and pans a tad bit. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
I fucking love it. I know.
Yeah, this one is a very special one. And this is exactly, like I said, this is why I did the stream. It was like, holy crap, am I really?
And the Flat Earthers are like, bravo, you got it.
Okay,
oh man, they don't see that disingenuity.
I'm gonna take a chance. I don't care. I'm sharing it. We don't have to listen to it. It's more of a visual thing anyway. Trust me, nothing he's saying makes any sense anyway. Okay, so let me get this to share. Oh, on Discord, Tody. Actually, no. Go to Discord. check your DMs. I sent the link to you. Plain Truth. Travis, I'll send the link to Skype just in case. I'm not sure if you are relaxing from your stream. And if you guys haven't, go check out Travis. Kind of more just hanging out. So
I like the chat that Travis has in his channel. Yeah, the hangout, because you can go in the chat and you can have fun and you can troll a little bit. Now, if you are, nasty and name calling and shit, he will block you, and I respect that. So if you go in a little trolling mood and just poking fun, it's all good. Go hang out in there. It's fun.
Yeah. And Dave, okay, I'll do it. But have you seen? Before I play, have you seen this, Dave? Because if you haven't, you should probably watch it before you defend it. I mean, man, you're about to see some crazy and just ugh. Hang on. Getting the links out there. Travis, you got one?
Yeah, I think I just saw this video probably a few minutes before you went live. And I was looking, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, yeah, I see it. Just click to me. He's just moving the camera up a little bit as he zoom in. And that's it. I mean, pretty much.
It's pretty bad, too. Man. Really bad. What's up, Blue? You are muted. I'm not sure if you knew. Here it is.
Hey, Sean. Hey, Sean. Gladys gave me permission to come over.
I don't know.
What's happening? How you doing, Sean?
That was you? That sounded odd.
Nah.
That was me.
I was gonna say. I was like, I don't even know if you can make your voice do that.
Well, it was Fish Guy.
Oh,
Fish is sitting. I fish over to the house. He drank too much beer. That's the problem.
Let me get this going to everyone. Make sure everyone sees it. Anything off the screen. There we go. I don't know who you are, Travis. What up, Travis?
Hello.
Hi, Travis.
Hello.
You managed to get in the end.
Okay, so trying to remember. Okay, there we go. I'll do it this way so everyone can see it. All right, there we go. So, oh damn, why is this big? Give me 1 second, guys. It's acting crazy. Okay, so there we go. Now you guys can see it. All right, get ready for this one. This is very special. Hang on, Sean, I'm getting there. Oh, don't want to do that. I don't know why it does that. That was weird. There we go. Gotcha, Sean.
Hopefully you get a little more traffic within a few minutes. I shared the link. I know there's other live shows, but if we get 2 or 3 extra people from my post, that's cool.
Definitely. And please, go like and share. Get some people over here. This is actually pretty important. And so everyone knows, I don't have a whole lot of time, so it's not going to be a long stream at all. But we're going to definitely get into this conversation because this is bad. And so everyone understands what you guys are seeing right now is not an illusion. The flat earther. Okay, I got it muted. Now, is it me, or does that camera seem kind of low? Now, I really want to know.
He is very low.
I want to know from the flat earthers if they believe that is a genuine test right there. And trust me, it's not done yet either. This is the first act. Okay, flat earth, answer this for me. What I just showed, is that so far an honest test? Travis? I remember earlier you said that you like him.
You talking about Michelle from Australia?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, nothing I've seen from him is questionable yet.
Wait,
So
so do you see where that quarter is right now?
I
And,
see what's on my screen on my phone right now.
okay. Well, watch what happens when he actually pans back out and then moves a quarter. Does that look level to the table, or does it look like it's under the table?
I don't know, man. I'm walking. I'm pulling my trolley. I'm a little bit.
I'll tell you, Travis. Trust me on this one, Travis. The camera is a little under the center of the table.
It's definitely under because you can see the middle of the picture. Just take the middle of the picture. It's dead simple. If it is at 90 degrees, which we assume it is, take the middle. It's above the middle. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Gonna watch it a little bit more. And he messes up by actually raising the camera, so now you see how low it is.
I mean, it's defying optics there, if it is level and in the middle.
I tried doing this myself dozens of times and dozens of times. When the angle of attack thing, it does not happen unless you manipulate it by putting the camera under the middle of the the table. It's the only way it happens.
And then we have, this is where the test gets bad. This is where, holy crap. This is where you should be seeing flat earthers all crying out foul play, but you don't.
Oh yeah, that's just ridiculous.
Anyone else realize that he's rolling that camera right there?
He's rolling it
Yep,
up.
he's rolling it up. Indeed. Yep.
You can see. Look, watch him do it. Look, here it goes.
There.
And it's moving up, and it's moving up, and it's moving up.
And if you don't understand what he's doing, so imagine
brought it back over
you
the
have
curve.
the camera in your hands. You're lifting the back of the camera as you lift it to give it it's like a cinema look almost. But not good for.
Yeah, this I say he might have it in the tripod, so he got the two parallel legs in the back, and he got the one leg sticking out in the front of the tripod. As he zoom in, he just lift the whole thing up a tiny bit. He tilted up, so the camera is gonna do that effect. So he doesn't physically lift the camera. He lifts, he tilted back like the tripod, so the camera lens come up a tiny bit, that little bit that he needs,
But the thing is, he knows he's doing that, which is what makes it so disingenuous. Nobody is doing either of these two tests. Exactly. These are propaganda. They're the worst kind of propaganda because the individual doing them is not a little bit confused or a little bit fooled. He knows exactly what he's doing because he's having to do them to get the effect that he wants to show. It's really bad.
And for gullible people looking into this subject, they say, holy shit, if this is one of the first videos that they see, it is dangerous because they persuade people to believe a lie.
Is that the underside of the tabletop you see from right in there?
The bevel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, underside of the trim of the table.
But I mean, we know how optics work, right? If something is coming from the light from the other end and reaching it, we know that something in the middle isn't going to be blocked out like this, right? It's just a fact. Sorry, Boo.
Good. Yeah, this is, like I said, this one was bad. Like, I saw it and was like, oh no, I got to stream. Terrible. And because I don't want to worry about the copyright strike, I'll explain what he was saying. I have my little notes. Again, for optics, he said, or basically that was the graph where he was saying that the Rayleigh criteria is a elevation optic, where basically you're looking at things in lower, higher elevations scenario, whereas in the Rayleigh criteria is two objects. I scoured every goddamn site I could find since you guys were talking about this on Jose's, and I get nothing.
So this is the identical thing, which is where LBB Store has got it from, because LBB Store was trying to make the same claims when we did that stream with him the other day. You know, it was me, Rumpus, and I can't remember somebody else. I think Bob had to go first. You're the one that Jose has premiered. LBB Store was making the same claim, yep, that as you reduce that angle and as it goes past, you know, as it gets nearer and nearer to the floor, this is exactly the effect that LBB was talking about, which again is obviously it's incorrect.
What's the name of the user that created this video, Sean? And Marty is asking in the chat.
Mitchell from Australia.
Thank you. And by Ali B's eyes, we are all lying pieces of shit. Sorry, Ali.
Darn, I didn't want to be. So everyone gets a good idea of what we're supposed to be looking at when we're looking at this video, and all we're seeing is that thing. This is what it looks like. Why? Because in a good explanation for it, each one of these humps is car lights ahead of the headlights on the car. Now, from up close, you're going to be able to see that the front of the car and the lights going to be very resolved. Resolution, good. Then you get to the middle. It's when things start to merge. That's when they must go over each other. I think it's 50%, I think, by this point to be classified as, what was it? Just resolved, I think it was, if I remember correctly. Where it's you can see there's two objects, but it's not quite merged together yet. And then you get unresolved. That is what happens at the distance, and your eyes no longer can resolve detail in the two objects. Now it just looks like one. Again, nothing in this whole conversation with the Rayleigh's criterion has anything to do, anything at all, really, to do with
the first thing
obstruction.
So this happens at a distance, right? It is not happening across the top of a tabletop. Yeah, you're not trying to use, I don't know, a microscope to look at very, very small objects, in which case, diffraction might come into it. That's not happening here. Point one. Point two, I'm definitely not a liar, LEB. We're not lying here. It is very, very clear. We know exactly how things work on tabletops. And so this individual is definitely putting it below the center line, and he's definitely rolling it when he's trying to, zoom it back in across the tabletop. You're just simply not going to see those kind of effects across the tabletop. It's just a nonsense. I'm amazed with it even.
Ali, be honest, like for real. Type in the chat, Ali. Do you believe he did not move the camera up when he was zooming in? Because we all saw that. Even some flat earthers in the chat. Be honest, guys, in the chat, and tell us: did he move the camera as he was zooming in? We all can see it.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Clearly, this poor guy has no clue what the Rayleigh criterion actually means
at all. Because, like I said, I was watching this last night, and I thought maybe he was using it like this for room, but then when he started explaining it, and I looked again, I realized that he's literally using those graphs as not only how it works, but he's using it to depict the angle of the quarter falling, or the quarter being seen, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, he means it on a tabletop, clearly, because I thought, is he just doing it to show kind of, as you say, like distance? He means it on a tabletop. We've seen that. He thinks that he's managing to resolve it back in by the zoom process, of I presume the P900 is out there. And if he's not tilting it, maybe it's the weight of the P900 on the zoom or something that is pulling the front of the camera down. If I'm trying to be very generous, I think he's tilting it, to bring it back in. But, maybe the weight of the lens moving in and out is quite heavy. If you've got a cheap tripod, it may flex forward a bit. So maybe he's not aware that it's tilting. I don't know. But it's definitely tilting, that camera.
Another one I wanted to show you guys. Luckily it's a short one, so it's not like really bad. 643. Oh, I remember this one now. This one aggravated me as well. Okay, so like we see here, we saw. Where is it? Okay, so he makes another claim. He states that these are two boats. These two boats, the one on the left being at 1 inch observer's height, and the other one being 3 foot observer's height. And he says right out the gate, 3 foot observer, and the 1 inch is the one that's showing obstruction due to distance or angular resolution. And he's literally equating obstruction with it. And I thought instantly, is it very honest for him to be making these claims on a boat? The same boat, mind you, remember that, same boat, obviously different passes, and I see wake. For all we know, that boat ain't moving on the left.
Definitely not an inch above the water.
Oh yeah, that
definitely not an inch. I agree. Definitely not an inch. And look at the zoom on the trees.
I mean, look at. Say it's higher.
So look at the tree line. The tree line is looks like it's a bit closer. Definitely.
The one on the right looks like it's zoomed in a lot.
That's what I mean. The one on the right to me looks like it's zoomed in, as you say, quite a lot. Because look at the trees; they're definitely larger there.
Yeah, everything.
And it's a different pass. It's a different pass, like you say. It has to be.
Yeah, that's the other problem. Like, how do you get the same boat, same water? Yeah, that's like atmospheric or ether band. It's like saying that lake has no conditions, no waves, no swells or little swells. Just air, just waves.
The closest I had is with my older camera, and I went really close to the water. The camera almost sitting down, and it was, I say, 4 to 6 inches. It was the closest I could get, so not to get splashed, you know. Mm-hmm. And the water has to be so calm and no wave, just kind of a little bit of a little bit of that little waviness thing. But this one looked like choppy water. He cannot get closer from 6 inches down. Yeah,
he can't get to an inch. So I went to Dorney Lake the other day, as you saw, and it was perfectly still there. And even then, you've got the height of the lens on the P900. So the center of that lens is always going to be 3 or 4 inches off the water, even if you sort of rest it almost on top of the water. Yeah. And this is choppy water. I don't believe it's an inch.
I don't think that's obstruction. That obstruction has anything to do with angular resolution either. So, like I said, a lot of these things that we're talking about, some of it can be complicated, I guess. But what we're talking about is very basic, or what we're saying, we're calling out, what we're pointing out. There's a better way of saying it in this upload. This is, to me personally, this is 100% what intellectual dishonesty looks like. There's no other way around it. Because I made another observation, or I didn't make the observation, I made another discovery, I'll say. Start a new window.
What is choppy water? I can define choppy water as it has a little bit of a wave effect, a constant, maybe from 2 inches to 6 inches. You know, you see that little wave. That I call that choppy water.
Yeah, but that can be 1 to 2 feet, could be 6 feet. That boat, you know what I mean? It's like there are so many things that factor in. The fact that those two images were Chris Berry style doesn't work.
Yeah, so much data missing, and then if a Globe side provide a video, they're gonna try to break it down to molecules and go like, no, bullshit. So we have to do the same. I mean, I don't trust these observations. These two look so fraudulent to me. It's missing so many factors, and it's just so observably not what he is explaining, that he's taking the footage, the height, the distances, the movement. It just looks so fraudulent. And he said that some flat earthers wrong with it. It is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this one to me took me a little longer to figure, or actually took me the least amount of time to figure out, the most amount of time to figure out if I even cared to even discuss it or look into it. And here's why. So, you've written share. What's going around? All right, so I'll share this. Okay, so one of the things that the uploader, the creator, one of the observations that they saw was this one. Brent Hurst Lighthouse. And it says 20 kilometers away from where he's at. And one of the things I learned to do, and I learned to do this with Red Pill, was that I needed to find out where their observation was from. Now, he explains in here, in this one, that at 30 meters high in elevation, that's what you would see. And then at 6 feet, you would see that on the right.
Has he mocked it up, Sean? Or is that an actual picture on the right? Is that a real picture, or is it one he's photoshopped?
I believe it's one I think it's one he took, but again, like the other one, he's zoomed in on this one, and it's not from the same place. And let me show you guys why. So,
But, I mean, it does look like something behind the curve, though, right? It does look like it's obstructed by water.
Yeah. But that's why it's well, you can see where the land is, and then see where the water line is on the one on the right. Well, here's the problem. Look at the tower. Look at the lighthouses. Why are they the same height? He's zoomed in, and he's now.
Well, it looks longer on the one on the right. Well, the top of it looks longer, actually.
Yeah, but
and it doesn't flare out. It
what
looks
he's doing
great
is,
too. Yeah,
but he's placing them. He's placing the photos to look like that.
This is what Travis told me not to do, to even the photos or magnify it a little bit or minimize it so I can make them even side by side. Travis told me not to do this. So hopefully Travis call him out for his BS too.
Right.
Those pictures are actually very nice proof of the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, guys, remember stay in the what do you say script? Stay in the script because we have all pre-planned this for weeks. This meetup that we're having right now, we gotta stay on script. All right.
Okay. So here's the fun part now. So again, look at the observations. There's the lighthouse, and this is very important. The lighthouse is on a hill. This lighthouse is not very tall. This lighthouse is actually about 63 feet tall. So if he was at 90 feet, he would actually be looking at the top of this thing. That's issue one. Let me see. Where is it? Where is it? My map. Where'd it go? Okay, so what I did was I instantly went over there and was like, hey, why can't I see the island? Where the hell did I put it? Oh no, it's not showing up. Hang on.
It's down below, isn't it, Sean? Because I can see it on the live feed.
Yeah, no, I dropped it. And it's gonna be a pain in the ass to get to it. Hang on.
Sean Smith and Big Blue, what do you think about these two observations previous to this one of the lighthouse? He being honest on what the way he's interpreting what he's presenting, actually.
You're talking about the boat in the previous.
Yeah, the boat and the quarter.
Oh, he's clearly tilting the camera with that quarter observation. There's no question about that. And that boat, either he's in a different position or the boat's in two radically different positions. You can tell that just by looking at the background.
How about the 1 inch high? He said.
I don't believe that. No.
That's just far-fetched in itself. Why would you do that? And again, at 1 inch, how are you looking from above that boat?
Yeah, it's just I don't understand, man. What? I don't know.
It's just rubbish. At 1 inch, you wouldn't see that much of that angle of that boat. Just wouldn't be there, would it?
The smallest little wave would obstruct the lens.
So this is my issue with this. So if you notice, it's an island.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the coast of the mainland. Well, what I did is I took the handy dandy ruler, measuring tape, and I took it and I tried to find. I'm not having a good day with this damn thing. Okay, so I took it and I tried to figure out what's going to be about 20 kilometers. The problem is there's nothing in 20 kilometers around this radius, right? But everything closest is 39. About 39 miles is the closest to that lighthouse from the mainland. Well, here's the issue. See this little cutty of land? That's the only thing that would obstruct it in the way it does. And so I go in and I wanted to see the topography of it because that matters. And notice this. See the bakery, the air taxi, and these rocks, right? So when we pull up, what is it?
This is quite famous, this Rock Nest Island. I've looked at this, well, someone who's done observations on this Bathurst lighthouse before, because I think it's the one where actually they called it out on Nathan Oakley's channel, where they actually changed the Google image, apparently. You used to be able to see it or something from along the front looking towards this Rock Nest Island, and Google updated their images and apparently it disappeared then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
but
it's one they've mentioned before. It's a very popular one.
But you see those buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you even look at it as satellite, there's no other buildings on the other side of the island. It had to have been looking from the angle that was way too far. Like he had to have been standing somewhere way off. It had to have been looking this way, or at least in this area, like in this right here.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
So Erebus, Bearded Devil, has been blocked from my YouTube channel because he's not able to address me personally, but just say simply that I'm lying and misrepresenting my data. So, you know, if I approach it from the same vantage point that you guys are addressing Mitchell, he's not here to discuss this with you, but you guys are discussing this, you know, I think adequately. I think that you're addressing it honestly. I'm not going to accuse you of anything along those lines. But my question is, if you wouldn't mind, and I don't have the ability to do it right now, but the video that he addresses, if you wouldn't mind somehow addressing that, maybe with me, because he accuses me of representing two different vantage points, one from the water level and then the other from 5 feet off the water. And it's completely erroneous because I have my camera at the same height both times. But I don't see that any different than the discussion that you're having right now, but it's with Mitchell and he's not here. So in the future...
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. In the future, if you want to set up a time for us to look at the footage that I provide and walk through it with me, I would be happy to address this in a way that is objective with me present. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this right now. Travis, if I feel that because Erebus has made you're echoing, someone I can't tell what it is. I'm presuming.
It's Travis, I think.
Yeah. Mute yourself for a sec, Travis. This is my personal opinion about the situation between Erebus and yourself. I feel that because Erebus is making the claim that you're a liar, that's his claim. It's on him. I hope he has evidence of it and can show forth, so that way it's not just him, calling wolf. At the same time, I agree. You have more than enough reason and just to want to be here for that conversation, and I won't have it unless you're here. I don't know Mitchell.
And I think
I don't know Mitchell at all, so it was be kind of difficult for me to reach out to him. If anyone does know him, he's more than welcome. But like you said, Travis, I don't think discussing anyone's videos, or what they may have done wrong is wrong at all if it's done with some adult intelligence.
I want to add something. I want to add something to that so bad, Sean. Like Travis, it would be cool, to look at more of your videos, but one day when you are paying attention and you are in your laptop, we can double check these videos also and give an honest opinion on what do we think, like what we're doing right now, but you haven't been able to put a lot of input because you're in your phone and you're moving and you're busy, One day when you have time and you're comfortable, let's take a look at this quarter and the boat video and be honest and analyze critically, unbiased, to see what we are seeing, if the data that he's providing is being genuine or not. I think it could be cool, to get a flat earther point of view on it, honestly.
Yeah. That's odd. It's not odd, but I remember when I was a flat earth, I don't know how it was for you, Jose, but I remember my goal and the goal of the people that I was around was to get out the information that we had. So if we felt something worked a certain way, we wanted to express that as loudly and to as many people as possible. And now it's kind of like some people are reserved, some people are just out there and just clueless, and some people are trying to figure shit out, and they're playing that jump rope game where they're trying to figure out where to jump in. So it's one of those things where it's like a shift where I'm going, are you guys trying to wait to see if you can one up somebody, another flat earther, or are you just nervous about your information being correct or not? Trust me, we're all wrong. Just bring it out and let's see it. Pretty simple idea of how it works. It's not. It's definitely not. Or here's the issue: when you do something shady, and this is anybody, both sides, whatever. You do something shady, and especially an observation like that or a test, you're trying to deceive people purposely. If you move or if you're doing something shady with an observation and it's not to deceive people, then you're purposely doing it to deceive yourself. Either way, if someone says shady, you should be more than willing to do the test again. Better. Kind of like we put Chris Berry on the spot. Chris Berry did that one test 3 times because the first 2 everyone went shit. Everyone, that should be for everyone. Shit, flat earthers, if you see someone going from the globe do a test and there's a bunch of shady ass shit going on, call it out. Forget the facts they're saying.
We are close-minded, Shanji. We are close-minded, says Ali B.
But that's Ali B's closed-minded. He used to be a truther. Didn't matter what side was saying what. Didn't matter the topic. He just wanted to be involved. Now, he acts as if Flat Earth is purposely annoying Globe with these little terms and streaming where they just rant. Like, Ali B, just keep streaming, do you? And trust me, I'm seeing Flat Earth is not gaining momentum. And as much as I like Travis, all he's talking about is atmospheric optics. He hasn't got to details yet. My opinion, Travis. My opinion. And everyone else on the panel. But like I said, I've seen a few of Travis's stuff. Nothing was like that Mitchell guys. I wouldn't compare the two. That Mitchell.
And I'm gonna, in the next few days, I'm gonna grab a few papers and I'm gonna grab a ruler, and I'm gonna grab a pencil or a pen, and I'm gonna point my camera down in my stream, and I'm gonna draw a little bit of perspective, 1 point perspective and 2 points perspective, move some object, at least as drawing wise, you know. I'm gonna just remember, you know, bring it back from memory. So you guys can have an idea how perspective works in a paper if you haven't drawn yourself. It's really cool. I like that.
Yeah,
So I'm out
go
on
ahead.
the Chesapeake. I'm out on the Chesapeake right now, and I wasn't able to be here last night at this time because I was with my kids. So, in terms of being able to be out here at the same time every night is not possible for me. But
No,
right now,
I got a kid. I get that 100%.
yeah, sure, I understand. So right now, though, the sky is overcast. Last night it was absolutely crystal clear. But I'm on the same spot right now. I'm gonna keep filming on the same spot until it goes dark, just to see what happens. But I try, really, honestly, I try to be as consistent as possible, shooting everything from the same location, from the same spot, from the same, like I'm not in the water, but the very front of my tripod is just kissing the water, and
Is your P900 back, Travis? Have you got that fixed now?
no, I've left it in. I've left it in the container. I've got the silicone in there. I'm gonna leave it in there till Monday. I'm gonna check it on Monday.
Okay.
What happened to it?
It took a nosedive straight into the water.
Ooh. Damn. I cherish those things. I cherish gold so much so I wouldn't even use it. Oh, maybe that's just because I don't have one, Jose.
I saw you taking footage from the water, Travis. I was cringing like, oh no, man, this is bad. The camera's gonna fall. So it happened, eh? I know, Sean, you don't have one. I can't do it. I gotta go and do more observations myself.
Oh man, I don't trust me. I don't.
That's not gonna stop, you know. Yeah, that's not gonna stop. I'm gonna keep going out taking footage and uploading what I do.
Let me see. I think Jeranism didn't want it anymore because he kept promoting so much damn Globe. He was like, we had a meeting, we voted, Jeranism, get rid of that fucking camera.
He has an extra P900 and P1000 or two P1000s. What is he doing with it? Is he uploading new stuff? I mean, myself, I haven't uploaded a lot, but I try, I do my best. But he has a lot of money, he has a car, he can go out and do observations, you know. It's more difficult for me in my bicycle, I'm far from stuff, you know.
Well, the biggest issue for him is that he keeps making observations, debunking flat Earth, and then changing his narrative to make it sound different.
One of the last ones he did was the ISS.
The ISS transit. Yeah, I got it. Great shot, great footage. But I don't know if it's real. What the fuck? Third transit. That's his third.
Yeah. Let's see something that looks exactly like the ISS went across the moon at exactly the time NASA said it would, but I don't know if it's real.
I think he did 2 sun and 1 moon transit.
Yeah.
I mean, what else does he think it could be as well? This is the ridiculous thing, because he even knows the speed it's going. You can do the calculations right from the time it takes to transit. So you can work out the speed, right, to pretty good accuracy, right, within 100 miles an hour or something.
He's talked about the ISS in all its detail. Not like detail, but all, where it is, tracking it being there, the speed. Like, he's talked about all that as if he understands that. But the second you ask him, is it real? He flips that switch again.
He must know. He must know it's real. If you go out there, and his observations are quite good, right? He's using that P1000. I saw his first one he did. I haven't seen the other two, but I've seen the first ones. He must know. He must know.
Yeah, he does. I think he's.
But do you think he's gonna say something when he's got a few thousand Patreons from $1 to $20 Patreons, and he got all these PayPal accounts and the big super chats? He's gonna lose at least $25,000 a month if he decides to tell the truth.
He doesn't have PayPal anymore. PayPal shut him down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got more $100 Patreons, all right.
Yeah. Well, PayPal doesn't want, or YouTube doesn't want people using PayPal. They want them using Super Chat, obviously. So Streamlab, what is that, Tip City or whatever it is, like YouTube, if they find out you have those in your link, they're trying to get rid of you. They're trying to get rid of those out of here. They don't want you using those at all. They don't search through people's links and shit, or their description, so they never go find it that way. But if you get enough, PayPal will alert Google. Google will alert you to stop, and then they'll basically ban that link. Pretty crazy. I had no clue until I started reading up on it. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is I am going to actually set up the sextant and then learn how to use it, and then maybe use it once or twice. Looks too damn complicated, all these little mirrors.
I saw the picture. It was nice, John G. You don't have a camera to show it?
No, I don't have my webcam up anymore.
Damn it. Share a picture of it.
Yeah, I can pull a picture up. It's not very big.
So
it's... Go ahead.
You got a sextant?
Yeah, it's...
Oh, cool.
It's... I'd say it's 1/4 the size of a average one that would go on a ship. But it got everything, measurements, all the windows and crap. I just don't know how to use any of them.
YouTube it, bro. You'll learn.
That's right. I just haven't had time since because I'm still working and getting close to the end of that project. So I've just been getting home, streaming, and going to bed.
Oh, but wait, if you YouTube it, it might not be. No. Yeah, it might not be real because once it's in YouTube, it's fake. Remember that.
Okay, so
who did I see that? Was it a flat earther? He said, I think it was Jaden. He said, like, so you telling me, like, if I see it on YouTube, it's fake? I agree with Jaden with this. When he said, so if I take a birthday party singing happy birthday to me and my mom, and I upload it to maybe Facebook and my friends, this is cool, it's legit. But once I upload it on YouTube, if you see it on YouTube, it's fake. It just stopped being real. And I agree, that's fucking hilarious.
Did you know I got a copyright, like a hard copyright strike, or like when I first started streaming, for singing the birthday song?
Really? What the hell?
Yeah.
Really? What were you sang it so close to the original, or just the words?
Just the chorus. That's it. And then my friend's name. It was his birthday, so I sang it. I looked it up. Like, I guess if you sing the verse twice, it plays into the copyright, because you can say it to somebody, but
someone has copyrighted. Someone has copyrighted. Well, I won't say it, but "Happy Birthday to You," that song. Yeah.
Yes.
Someone has copyrighted it. What?
Yep.
How can that be?
Only in America. Only in America.
Oh no, it's everywhere. Oh, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I don't know about everywhere, but yeah, definitely have here. But this way, that's why no one will ever hear that song on this again, and that's why I get scared when people sing songs on here, Travis. Because it don't matter if it's a song or not. It's the algorithm.
But John G, we gotta be careful with some, because like, take me out to the ball game. That's
copyrighted, but I don't think.
Damn.
I don't think it's in the algorithms like the birthday song is.
Probably "Happy Birthday" is used a lot. That's why they do it. Yeah, to hit people. I'm just thinking. Right, my videos now. I've got 9 seconds of a commercially available song, though I've cut it into little pieces and rearranged it. I'm just worried now that the algorithm's gonna find it and hit me. How long does it take to get a hit?
Okay, so I was gonna say that too. So I, as of right now, so far for the past 3 weeks, I have gotten at least 1 to 2 soft copyright strikes for live streams up to 2 years ago. It's like a Disney owns it. It's from some movie, like some movie like The Matrix or something like that. But it's part of my intro where like I have all those numbers all wrapping around each other and shit. It's not in this intro. It's an old one I had. But yeah. It's literally 4 seconds, and they got me for it. But furthest back I've gotten one.
What they make you do? They make you do what? Take it down, or you're a bad boy? Or...
On a soft strike, all they're saying is the ad revenue then goes to that creator.
Yep. I've had a couple.
All the ad revenue from the video.
Yes.
Yeah.
They give you the option right away. You can trim it out if it's small enough, and then they don't get the ad revenue. But if it's
So if I play a whole song, if I play a whole hot song, let's say I play Bohemian Rhapsody of Queens and I sing it with karaoke style, do I get just a soft strike?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the content creator, but think about it this way: you want your content, your monetization to be as networking as possible. So I want you to use my stuff, and in a 5-second thing, get all your ad revenue from your stream. Why would I? I'm not taking you down.
You know what I do when that happens, though, Sean? I demonetize the video.
Yeah.
If I can't have it, screw you. You ain't getting it either.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I just demonetize it.
And as of a month ago, I actually started getting my hits. Like, so if someone takes a clip for me and airs it, I know when that happens now. It doesn't tell me who, but it tells me when. It tells me a platform, but it doesn't tell me exactly who.
How do I do that?
Go to it's in your settings. Go offhand. I don't know how to get there because I'd have to search and do it again.
But you see on the settings, Go Creator Studio.
Into your settings. No, into your settings and then into Google settings. It's in there.
Okay.
Security,
I'm gonna look it up.
revenue, ads, and all. You'll see, once you search around in that back area, you'll start noticing those things. Now that you're
cool.
You're up higher in subs, but it's weird. So there is a spot. There's like if you're in this honey hole of a place for YouTube, you're treated well, and you would think it's like those million sub people. Nope, it's like 100,000 to 300,000 or something like that. They're like untouchable. It's crazy. Like, when you go, your studio beta or whatever, and then you go classic and get back to all your other stuff. In the very bottom right, sometimes it's the creator studio or whatever the fuck they call it, where they tell you what's new, what's happening, and what's changing and all that crap. Start listening to those. Those are very important. Very important. I didn't think they were until I started listening to them, and then they start telling you stuff that you need to know that you never even heard because you don't ever listen to them. But
what were those silly people in it where they make you do it before you can do a certain thing? Like I had to listen to some of those.
No.
Those people explain.
For instance,
no?
I'll go there right now, and I'll show you guys. All right, so I don't think there's anything good right now going on, but these right here, Creator Inside. These are gold to a content creator. Most of the time, it ain't shit. Most of the time, who cares? But a lot of time, they tell you stuff that you need to know. They'll give you heads up and warnings on stuff. Yeah, but that's the Creator Insider. Very, very important. And I like to think fire.
How do you tag your things now, Sean?
Huh?
How do you tag your things? Do you now, when you're tagging, putting your hashtags in and your description for your videos, do you use the word Flat Earth anymore? Or
or my title, yes and no. I switch it back and forth. If it's nothing to do with Flat Earth, I don't. It will just say the truth. When I'm not trying to do the Flat Earth thing, it'll say FEGE. And then when I'm talking Flat Earth, or I'm talking about a Flat Earther or Flat Earth, it says Flat Earth on there. But it will always, unless like last night when I was calling out Flat Earth data, it will always say Flat Earth, Globe Earth, because I'm talking to both. But in certain situations, you'll see Flat Earth. If it says Flat Earth, no globe, I'm pissed. That's how I look at it.
And that doesn't stop it coming up or anything.
And when I do my
I just wondered whether the
huh?
Okay. I just didn't know whether the algorithms like using those terms or not.
You never know. You really never know what kind of word it's gonna grab.
Yeah.
That latest one I did. I had the title of it, "Sleeping Warriors' Views on Science and Politics," it grabbed politics and demonetized the video.
Oh, you're joking.
I went back in and did nothing but take out the "and politics" from the title, Sleeping Warriors Views on Science, and within 4 hours it was monetized again.
And then, like, you were asking about my tags. Where did I do that at? I don't think I do it here.
But I've had a lot of them that I never did find out why it did that. I would protest, and request they review it, and every time it would come back and say, "Oh no, your video's fine." I'd get an email, your video's fine. It's been monetized, but the problem is, you lost the monetization for the first 2 days that the video was up.
And that's the best time.
Which is when you get most of your damn views.
When you get most of the views because it's fresh. It's annoying, isn't it?
But this is one of this latest one. It did that, and I thought, "Oh shit, here we go again." So I requested a review, and this time it came back and said, "We manually reviewed it, and it's not suitable for our advertisers." And that's when I changed and took the word politics out, and then immediately it was okay. I don't know what that is.
They didn't change the content.
Crazy.
So they didn't manually look at it then, did they, at all?
No.
No, totally. About. I'm sorry.
Or the word politics sets them off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you were asking me about my tag list. Use TubeBuddy.
Yeah, I'm just interested because I started doing these tutorials for old guys who don't know how to use computers. So I did one of the first ones this afternoon, and I'm just interested whether that's a viable business and what kind of tags I might use. Shout out to Blue Marble.
Well, if that's the case, get TubeBuddy, because if you go to the list, you can make your own list. So all I do when I go live, all I do is this: I click on tag and I hit insert, and all my tags.
Oh, hang on, what's this? This looks good. This looks really useful. What's this called? TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy. I better make a note of that. You see, Blue, sharing all this knowledge. It's amazing what one picks up, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You knew about this already, probably, this TubeBuddy, but I keep doing them manually every time I do my videos.
I do a lot of them manually.
See, so this is what happens. Like, I literally have to delete. There's 6 of them I think I have that I automatically delete because I don't want to get hit with a weird strike or taken down for something stupid. So like take off the "You've been exposed." I take off the military one, and I don't even know why I just don't go in there and actually delete them off. But then I got a bunch of doubles. That's using the Explorer ad. See, so I can add the list. 3. Where is it? I think I gotta go over here.
No, the only tag is "Free the Frogs." I think that's the only important one.
Oh yeah, like mine. I think every stream I at least have the 500 max that they want you to have.
Do people search? Do those hashtags? Do they go to Twitter? Do people search them? Because I never found out how they actually use those tags. The ones you're just putting in your
search algorithm uses it.
Yeah, it takes the algorithms off of it. So if Flat Earth is trending, and I had a Flat Earth in there, it's gonna pull my Flat Earth. And anytime you hit Flat Earth, it'll put me somewhere in that list, depending on subs and how often you upload. Okay,
but then how does it work? So they do transcripts of all videos now, pretty much, or all English language videos, right?
Okay, so
it's beta to generate.
Yeah. It's beta to do that, but they're still trying to have the creators do that, which seems impossible to me. Like, you can have a transcript.
To me, it would be better for them almost to, just average the transcript, average the number of times a word is used, and then look for words that are a little bit more rare. You see what I mean? And push them. I don't know. There's probably an algorithm you could do.
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff.
I would think
GitHub.
I don't know that.
Has some source codes that will read it and do all that stuff.
I don't use any tags, anything special. I just go live with nothing special, not even Flat Earth in any of my title, description, anything whatsoever.
Let's see from how many?
See, because Bob seems very successful at having grown his channel, doesn't he? Bob seems to have grown his pretty quickly. Bob the Science Guy.
That's not the same as me, or yeah. Jose, your uploads. Do your uploads get good views?
I haven't uploaded a lot, but not many when I upload like a few clips, like observations. I don't get many uploads.
Yeah, see, me either. Me and Jose, we're live streamers, so our views come from live streaming. My uploads, I get 1/16 of the views that I do on my live streams. It's bad. Like, I don't get it. It pisses me off. Like,
And I think I only done.
I'll have like
I only
10
done
to
one
40.
premiere. Yeah,
Huh?
I only done one premiere. It went well a few months ago. But if I got something to premiere, I don't upload it as a premiere. I just go live and play the video pretty much.
So it's a different kind of thing, is it? The live stream. Live stream is all about frequency, always doing it daily, getting your super chats in. It's a different business model, is it?
Yeah. I think it's easier and harder. I guess.
Yeah, because you have to prep the videos, don't you, to make videos like Blue or
there's definitely more sit time doing uploads. When you're streaming, you're always progressively doing something different. Like, you're constantly trying to make things easier, trying to make, where things don't fit or don't help flow or make things harder. You're trying to take those things out. So I think in that sense it's easier, but because we're doing it every day, it's harder.
But how much you need to have a business? Well, probably depends what you're streaming. I mean, if we were streaming daily, I don't know, computer reviews or camera reviews, maybe that gets a lot more traction business-wise. I'm just thinking to stop a job and do YouTube full time.
I would never even think about it.
Need Flat Earth wouldn't do it, would it? You'd need
as Nathan Oakley, as Jeranism, and those people that live for YouTube and make money.
Yeah,
even lying, but they make
the
money.
Time or the patience or the care to invest that much into YouTube.
Just off YouTube revenue, you would have to have millions of views per month.
Yes, that is very
literally.
I can tell you right now, I'm definitely on the low scale of the monetization of things, and I can tell you now, I couldn't imagine anyone in their life surviving anywhere close to what I do. And
dude, me neither. No, hold on, me neither. And I have been. This is all I'm getting for the past month, and this next month is what the only thing I'm doing is for YouTube. That's why I kind of beg a little bit. Now, next month it's gonna be different. I'm gonna be having I'm gonna look for a new job. I know I'm gonna get a job quick, but these past 2 months it's been tough for me for the change that I've been going through. It's alright. It is whatever, At least I got a roof and I got food to eat,
Yeah, definitely.
But it was like my son was saying to me, "Oh, you want to make money on YouTube?" I mean, obviously I've got a job anyway, but he was talking to me about it, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, these guys go and do this something called Wish, is it? Is it Wish or something? Some product site?" And he was saying, "Oh yeah, loads of people do these reviews of these kind of crappy products,
like a discount
sort of merchandise, like an Amazon, but it's cheap."
Yes.
And he said, "Oh yeah, they make a load of money. The people who do those kind of crappy reviews, they just loads of videos, streams, go look. So, these are the AirPods that Wish do. Here, let's try them out."
Yeah. Amazon is the best place for that. Like you were just talking, like unboxing and tutorials and all that shit. Amazon has one. It has same thing like YouTube, where it's mainly that. Here's the best part. If you do good enough and you upload enough, basically buy from Amazon and then review it, they'll start sending you free shit. That's how those guys that do the unboxing do that. They've done it so much, it gets so many views that companies see that, hey, all we got to do is send him something. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to see it. Millions of people are going to see it. And advertising. And all they're doing is giving something to somebody. That's all they got to do.
Especially if you're an engaging person like Jose, it's could be,
well,
you need a character as well, don't you?
I've looked into it, right? Like independent sponsor, like independent advertisers and stuff. And their issue would be they don't know if you're going to stream tomorrow. They want to actually put you in contract, and who the fuck? I'm not going under a contract. Fuck that. Because when you do that, then you're also supposed to get a certain amount of views for them to be happy as well. And I don't need that kind of pressure in my life.
Here you go, Toady. This is my channel. I don't know if you guys can see it.
All right, yeah. What's that? Let's have a look. Views 47K. So 47,000
views. Yeah, 457,000 watch minutes. There's the estimated revenue.
£1 million a month. Wow, that's pretty good. Oh, yeah. Okay. I misread that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, if you're making that kind of money, Blue,
No shit.
you need to leave. It's time to retire.
But you see, it's you don't get a whole lot of money off YouTube.
No, you don't, do you? And that's quite a lot of views, right?
Which one?
Well, not comparatively. That's not a lot. It's going to come down to two things, and I think Bob has got a bigger audience by far. He's got 16 or 17,000 subs, and he'll get 8 or 10,000 views pretty quickly on any of his videos. I have a hard time getting above 5 or 6,000, and I haven't been putting them out on a daily basis. Bob has put a lot of videos out too. So,
a lot of videos. So, yeah, a lot of people watch it. No, he's got content coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing I think I'm going to start doing is spending maybe a little less time sitting in these chats and a little more time.
Videos.
Yeah, just cranking out some videos.
And I think if you always did at least one a week, let's say, people would get used to it, and then it would be a thing to watch, wouldn't it? Because Bob's going to do one a week.
Can I do a special shout out? Special shout out to Al K. Al K has been uploading videos the last few days. He's doing really good. I mean, he's taking like clips from my show or whatever, his latest interactions. He did one with Nathan Thompson and Anthony Riley, if I'm not mistaken. But he's got a little more time now to upload. And he want to grow his channel. I agree with him. He's cool. He got a lot of good observations. And I'm looking forward to what he does. Yeah, okay, he's great. And he needs a little more traction in his channel too. So go check him out.
If I had to choose, I think I like live streaming more, but my numbers look like Blue's numbers, but I got to do this every day, and so it has its trade-offs. Do you want to spend more time, like Blue was just saying? Do you want to spend more time, away doing these uploads, editing, and everything, the experiments themselves, or do you want to be involved with like everything going on, but you don't have anything to show, like uploads to show for it? You know what I mean?
So you don't make a lot, do you? Because I still make about
no, it ain't.
Dollars.
This right here, I'm telling you right now, this is not what I'm making right now. This is the average, and this is. I can tell you right now, I haven't made 171 since the first 2-3 months. The first 2-3 months, I made a little bit more. And it's
I'm surprised. So from my old business that still exists, though it's it's been superseded, right? But it's still out there. The web pages are up and everything, and I never took them down, right? I think they're still running. I'll check in a sec. I think they're still running at about $120 a week from the
That's
Google.
right. Yes, I superseded.
Yeah, superseded, and they definitely have been superseded. I'll check now. It'll be interesting to see what I'm still getting from them. So they don't pay you a lot, I'm thinking, for the Google views compared to. I'll look at the numbers. So what were you getting, Blue? You're getting about $100 for about 450k views, yeah?
Yeah. Since I've started this, I think on average, I'll get a check from those guys for $140, $150 a month, something like that.
Wow. So I'm going to see how many views I get.
Huh?
So I celebrated your $100+ dollars. Woohoo!
I'm pretty sure, like YouTube, or when I look it up, it says like live streaming and uploading are the same thing, basically, ad revenue wise. But I'm pretty sure something has to be different for uploading versus live streaming.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't make sense that, because you do, if you only live stream and you want to make anything, you have to do it every day. It'd be impossible not to. And the downside to going live stream like that is you miss 2 days, you see it. I can tell if I miss 2 days, I already know what my numbers will look like, and I'm just talking views.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I've done 7 videos in the last month.
Yeah, see, I've done.
Actually, past 2 days, I went live twice. I went live early and nighttime past 2 days. And I was thinking about going live later because after the show ended today, I stayed in the call and I recorded Pitche and the Rumpus on a one-on-one for like half an hour. That was hilarious, bro.
Oh, God.
Yeah, see, I think me and Jose average, I think, what, 30 to 45 times a month we go live.
Yep.
And it's almost the same as your 7 a month, Blue. So, I mean, it definitely has this different size. But on the other hand, Blue doesn't get super chat.
Right.
You don't even get an option. I mean, you can do
Right.
premieres, but
I just now set up a Patreon within the last week, and I haven't really pushed it either. But
see, and I'm learning about that. I don't think I'll ever use a Patreon because I don't think my content will be that good. But it's, I think it's like what is it? Like you basically would do different uploads, and they would upload there first, or
well, you know, I'm really conflicted about that. I definitely don't want to turn my channel into one of those, you know, pay to play deals.
yeah.
I don't care for that idea. And so it's pretty much, you know, voluntary. Whoever feels sorry for an old fucker like me can throw a couple of bucks in the kitty and, you know, feel good.
Yeah.
But yeah, one way you can do it is to set it up where you can set the Patreon thing up where for $25 a month you get previews or, you know, personal chats with me or some bullshit like that.
Okay.
They get to see you on camera, Blue.
I can't do that shit because I talk to you on the side, I fucking chat.
They get to see Blue on camera for a small amount fee. Wow.
You've already seen him on camera. I know what his phone looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I could go on camera right now if I wanted to.
I would pay to see a talking gorilla.
How much money you got?
All right, I hate to do it, guys, but I gotta take off. I got a football game, but like I said, the main thing I wanted to do in this stream, if anything, was the explaining that the Rayleigh criterion has nothing to do with obstruction from the bottom up. Doesn't describe it. Even the illustrations that they give us for how things work, nothing depicts, nothing even talks about an obstruction from the bottom up at all. There we go. These are some examples. I'll pull them up real quick before I take off. But
the plain truth, quick permission. The plain truth to, if I go live in maybe like an hour from now, to play the clip of the interaction that I had in your channel talking about the lighthouse.
Yeah, when you were on with me.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I'll be around. I'll jump on and talk.
Yeah, you can drop by. Cool.
Sure.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this one, your mute yourself, Trev. Thank you, sir. Full panel. There we go. So, again, discussing the Rayleigh criterion. Can anybody show me where obstruction from the bottom up is at all part of this?
Not zero.
Because this is the Rayleigh criterion. This is what explains it perfectly. So every time I'm hearing this, the resolution of our optics and the Rayleigh criterion, it's like, no, nothing to do with obstruction. So when we're looking out and we see a boat start being obstructed due to curvature, it's not the limit of our eyes. It's not. It doesn't work that way. Again, I said this, and believe it or not, I realized this right before I said it today. If it was atmosphere or anything else besides curvature that was obstructing a boat from the bottom up, then how the hell do we see in front of that? Like, we see the boat that's on the other side of that obstruction.
Well, I think that is part of my observations as well, and that is, I've made the claim that I'll say in 99% of the observations that are made, it's not from the bottom up; it's from the Rayleigh's criterion, so that it is just this merging. So if you look from you've got those three panes, right? The top, the middle, and the bottom. That's what I see on a daily basis when I'm following a boat. I see the top frame is the boat in complete clarity. The second boat is right when it's on the cusp of the ether band. And then the bottom is when it's in the ether band, and it just becomes this blur. It's never from the bottom up.
Okay, so here's the thing. We do have observations from the bottom up, so we do know that it is a thing. We're not saying what it is, but it is a thing. But again, in this, there's nowhere where obstruction is involved, yet that is what the conversation would be about obstruction. Because if you're not seeing obstruction at all, then you're not seeing very far.
No, because I would say that because of what you're showing us, right? Like what is this that we're seeing right now? What is this?
This is an example of the Rayleigh criterion. The top one.
But of what? Of what though?
Exactly,
is it just completely digital?
Okay, so the top one is depicting two objects, aka headlights of a vehicle. You got to mute yourself while I talk because I got this weird feedback. The top one is, say, headlights, two objects that your eyes can resolve. You can see it. You can the detail of two objects you're able to see. Then imagine as if this object went further away. Then what happens is the resolution of your eyes becomes less, and so therefore it becomes harder to see the detail of two objects down to the bottom one, which is one object, which is the two objects, but your eyes can't resolve that it's two.
Okay,
that is the limit.
I understand the concept of what you're talking about, but we don't watch headlights. We don't watch headlights move backwards, right? So what you're showing,
taillights do.
Okay, but hold on, Sean.
Single lights in the distance coming closer become two.
I know, but listen, Sean, what you're showing us right now is not that. This is like what, manufactured? Is this, I mean, like, what is this?
This is what do you mean manufactured? This is 100% an example of the Rayleigh criteria.
Okay, so what I'm going to understand you to say is that the bottom image is the image of the most distant capture of headlights heading in our direction.
Yes, it's the furthest away.
So again, what I'm asking you then is the bottom frame an actual capture of an actual car approaching from a certain distance away?
That's what it would look like if it was.
No. Listen to my question. Is this
this is an illustration of an example of the Rayleigh criterion.
Right. So then my argument would be this is not an actual argument to be made because it's not real.
It is. It's called an example.
No,
it is real.
It's not. It's not. This is manufactured. This is manufactured.
What do you mean
this
manufactured?
This is like me drawing a picture of me having sex with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, if no one believed that you ever could and would, then you would need to. But you better have that secret tattoo.
No, that's not. This isn't real, dude. This isn't real.
I think it is.
When you say real, I don't get what you're saying because that's there. That's an example. That's real. You say manufactured, like what? Deer in the forest with flashlights showing you?
No. Listen, show me a real the first thing is, hold on. There's a car coming. I'm gonna mute. Hold on. So the first thing that comes to my mind is Phuket Word, where he shows you a stretch of road, and he shows you a guy driving into the distance. That's an actual image that you can reproduce and show me right now. This, though, this is just what? Is this completely just CGI? Like it's not real.
It doesn't need to be real. It just needs to be an example to explain how it works.
Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, then that's a huge problem.
Not for me, because I'm explaining something very well. especially for someone who didn't have very much knowledge of it.
Show it to me in real life, Sean.
Okay, I can do
Get this
that.
shit off the screen. Get this shit off the screen and show this to me in real life.
Oh, okay. Right away. I'll do it right now.
And don't misunderstand that I don't think that this occurs, because I think I capture this on a daily basis. But what I'm saying is I would rather you show me real life. Like I would rather you show me clips from my videos to show this Rayleigh criterion. Do that, not this.
Oh no. Hang on, I'm getting it.
How about that?
Oh, cool. Thank you, sir.
Okay, again, what the hell is this? What am I looking at?
You are looking at real.
Real what?
Monochromatic light passed through a small circular aperture produces that first diffraction pattern.
A demonstration of, Blue? What is this?
This is a demonstration of the Rayleigh criterion.
No. Please.
Yeah.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
No. I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, stop. Okay, look. Yeah. Okay, look. I'm trying to understand. I'm not being just pugnacious here. I can't read the script that's there, so I have no idea what that says. Okay. What is the very left image of? What is that?
That is an image of monochromatic light passed through a small circular aperture.
Of what?
Which word did you miss?
No. Monochromatic. What's the source? What's the source?
Circular aperture.
What's the source?
Light. Monochromatic light source.
Oh my God! Whatever. Okay,
it is a monochromatic light source. Do you know what that is?
I'm just gonna say whatever right now. Whatever.
Do you know what that is? You wanted to see real. This is real. The middle image is the monochromatic light source through.
How far away?
I can read it. I can read all the details. I don't know. It's probably done with a microscope because you realize that the Rayleigh criterion. You realize the Rayleigh criterion doesn't just apply to your eyes. It applies to microscopes, telescopes, anything optical, cameras, whatever.
Okay, listen. Hold on. Stop. I'm not looking through a microscope when I'm shooting the Chesapeake. Okay, so knock that shit off.
Well,
it's not the same.
If you're going to quote the Rayleigh criterion, you knock that shit off, Travis.
Okay, does the microscope have atmosphere at 20 miles?
I didn't say it was a microscope. I'm telling you it can apply to any kind of optics.
Okay, why bring that shit up? I'm not looking through a microscope.
You asked what the damn Rayleigh criterion was and demanded to see an actual photograph. Here are 3 of them. The middle one it shows the 2 light sources that are close together. You can still resolve that as 2 light sources. The third image on the right shows 2 light sources that are so close together you can no longer resolve them as 2 different sources of light. It looks like one source.
Hey Travis,
that's what the Rayleigh criterion says. It doesn't say it becomes invisible. It just says you can't resolve the detail.
Exactly. Is this real enough for you, Travis?
Yeah, listen, I'm not trying to be completely...
No.
I'm not trying to troll you. Yeah, I can see it, sure.
So that's as real as it gets. You can tell me it's fake now?
No, I'm not saying it's fake. I didn't say anything was fake. I was asking you to substantiate what it was I was looking at in the previous images, which isn't what you're showing me now.
You said they were manufactured. Now I'm showing you another manufactured image. But
no, this is not manufactured.
Wait. So those cars aren't manufactured?
Okay, dude. They were made in a GM plant, yes. But what I'm saying is the photograph itself is just is original. Like it's a snapshot. It's real. It wasn't manufactured. It wasn't created.
No, what I'm saying about they did this on purpose. 3 cars. Okay. You do see the 3 cars, right?
It's not CGI.
It's an CGI image. Either. That's an illustration.
Of what?
Okay, this right here. You're seeing right now.
Okay, so the image, the 3 images in the panes that you showed earlier, I would say are manufactured. They aren't real. The image that I'm looking at, of what?
this. What you're looking at right now is the same thing. Same explanation, same description for the Rayleigh criterion.
Okay, I understand the Rayleigh criteria. I understand because it's what I watch every day. It's what I see every day. I understand the concept. I'm good. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
All right, I gotta get out of here, guys. That was fun. Blue, I feel your pain on that one, man. That was rough. Like, it doesn't get any more obvious and clear what we are showing. Matter of fact, the Rayleigh criteria seem to be one of the most easiest optic to figure out once I actually looked at it. Really, it's weird. Anyway, anybody got anything you want to shout out and promote before they get out of here? Jose, you gonna go live tonight?
Thank you. Yes, in about an hour or so, I'll schedule at least 10 or 15 minutes before I go live.
Cool. And then I think I will piggyback off you on that one. I may go live again. Do a
Cool.
little more. You can talk about this stuff?
Not really, no. I want to. I'm gonna present the Rumpus versus Piche earlier a little bit, and I'm gonna present the me versus the Plain Truth that took place about a week in his channel.
Cool.
Jose, no need to say versus, no names.
Versus mano a mano.
That only happens when we do the dance with the sounds of silence, my friend.
The karaoke, I will do that.
All right.
Plain Truth, you got anything coming up or same old same? Karaoke?
Yeah, same old. I get on when I get on, and it is what it is. I thought that today went really well. I appreciate your presence in the chat, so thank you very much.
Yeah. If anyone wants to go check Plain Truth out, Travis out, his description down in my description, or his link is in my subscription. Or in my description. God damn it. My bad, Travis. I know you don't like when I say that. But I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I got a football game to go to, and I'm late. So, with that,
Thank you, Sean.
Yep, thank you, Jose. I think everyone on this panel right now. Yeah, everyone on the panel right now. There are links in the description. Big Blue, Jose, and the Plain Truth. You gotta find them in my description. Go check them out. My friends, good guys. Travis is a little off, but you gotta have one of those type of friends.
Wow.
It's a good thing, man.
You.
Man,
Okay.
you made a bunch of flat earthers vote if I get a wrench or not in your chat, and no one voted.
I know, right?
You didn't say no.
I know.
I was like,
I know,
damn,
it's so funny.
you at least be a little attention.
They weren't
to
even
no.
paying attention. That just shows you they had me on mute, and they were just in the chat, just for the chat.
It was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I'll be stopping by for sure. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go say my little goodbye rant, and then I'll be done. And I'll see you guys later on. Jose, I'll see you later.
Thanks, man. I'm out.
Thanks, Sean.
Have a good one, guys. Yeah, so that was a good one. Actually, that was again. I mean, I honestly, I'm gonna say right now, past week and a half, the streams are getting better to me. More, a little bit more topic based, a little bit more structured. So I'm actually really happy with how things have been going. So I do appreciate everyone that's been on the panel because again, you guys are making the mix that make it work or not. Again, like I said, I'm gonna start moving progressively away from flat Earth, like Jose and many others, because it is getting kind of old. And I think it's better to remember that all these topics we're talking about, whether we're using it as globe evidence, you're using it as flat earth or globe denying evidence, it's still topics that we should know, we should learn. It doesn't matter. The only difference is that we got to stay true and not sway off the reality of it. The Rayleigh criterion is a very structured explanation for how resolution works, and if you can't change that, you can't make it your own. And that's what I feel like a lot of flat earthers is doing. It's not obstruction. Again, until I'm blue in the face, I'm telling you guys now, you're not going to tell me atmospheric optics are obstruction due to curvature. So with that said, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be on a little bit later on. Thank you guys for being here. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. And if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have the opportunity to learn the stuff I'm learning and express it to you guys and just meet people. So I am here enjoying the shit out of this. So don't think I'm not. And I ain't gonna stop for a long, long time.